Sheetal. Dr. Sheetal is a dedicated and very motivated anterior segment surgeon. She has a passion in corneal transplantation and anterior segment surgery and refractive surgery. Today, she will be sharing her experience on customized keratoprosthesis. Over to you, Dr. Sheetal Mahwar.
Yeah. Am I audible?
You are audible and your slides are visible.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Arvind. And at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Somshila and AIOC for giving me this chance. So today I'm going to talk about a case which of a keratoprosthesis, which I have done a little differently. As we all know that when there is a bilateral limbal stem cell deficiency, the PKP results are very, very discouraging, and rather they do not work at all. So in such scenario, we only have two options. Either you do alloslet or you do keratoprosthesis. Now both the procedures have its own pluses and minuses, and both the procedures do require a lot of dedication and follow-ups. So this was a patient of mine only where I had done a keratoprosthesis. As we all know that the BCL, this was a typical keratoprosthesis, Boston keratoprosthesis. And as we all know that BCL is very, very important in putting over the keratoprosthesis so that we can prevent the desiccation related complications like epithelial breakdown, stromal melt or necrosis. This is a patient where the BCL is sitting very well, and now we have a follow-up of 5 years for this particular patient. Now, this is my second case where you can see that there's dense symblepharon and a lot of fibrosis, the granuloma formation over the surface. So what I did in this case was excised the panels, released the symblepharon and did the keratoprosthesis, and I actually put the BCL also, but I realized that BCL was not sitting well because of the symblepharon, as well as there were a lot of air bubble formation which was happening. So I thought that let me remove the BCL and put the amniotic membrane graft, and I did the medial and lateral tarsorrhaphy. But unfortunately, even though I thought that it will prevent desiccation related complications, it did not, and it eventually went into stromal necrosis. Later on, this patient had infection, and I had to remove it, explant it, and do the therapeutic keratoplasty. So as I said that these cases have very, very difficult difficult journey per se. So this is another case where it was post chemical injury. Patient amniotic membrane graft was done elsewhere, and this patient went through lot of eventful course. We did the tarsorrhaphy, but patient still did end up with a lot of granuloma formation, fibrosis, symblepharon. At some point in time, I did the sled from the cadaveric graft, but it really did not help, and eventually this patient landed up like this. So this is a short video of my case where at this point in time, I thought that let me do the keratoprosthesis under the panels because I had learned from my last case, and I released the inferior symblepharon, and then we started dissecting it from the superior edge. Now it is very, very important out here to take the excise the panels in one single sheet. If you get the breakdowns or if you get the buttonholes, then it would be very, very difficult later on for the follow up or whatever aim you want to achieve, it may not be able to achieve it. So after excising the whole panels over the surface, you need to release everything, and I tried to see whether it covers the ocular surface. At this point in time, I actually could put the speculum, and I realized that it was still not covering it very well. So I did a little bit of underneath fibrosis excision, and later on then I got a nice cover of the panels over the surface. We did the 7.5 millimeter trephination of the host, and at this point in time I do not do the complete trephination, and we start assembling the keratoprosthesis. This is a orokeratoprosthesis, and on the optical stem you do the 8 millimeter dissection of the donor graft, and we put the carrier graft over the optical stem. Now after that, what we do is we put the back plate of the prosthesis over the carrier graft, and we lock the whole thing with the titanium ring. Now it is very important to lock it properly and check whether it has been locked, otherwise it can cause lot of problems later on. Once this was over, we complete the trephination, host trephination. The cataract was removed. Nowadays we do keep the posterior capsule so as to keep the anterior and the posterior segments separate, and did the BBI, and later on it was sutured the way we suture the PKP. Then the panels was sutured with the 80Y krill. Unfortunately, I had got one cut at this point in time, and we did suture that cut also very properly. And while taking the bites, few bites were taken with the episcleral tissue as well. So in the end, this looks like as if the whatever we started with, it looks exactly like that at the end. For a patient, it may look just as if the surgery is not done. So after around 10 to 12 days, I made an opening over the optical center. Now I did not do the opening at the same setting because I thought that the it was a full pannus. There was a lot of fibrosis. Once we dissect the pannus and again suture it, again some kind of a fibrosis is going to happen, and the whole dynamics of the optical centration would change. So we kind of let it heal for some days and then do the opening over the optical center. Now, the where the cut was, I had noticed that there was a bit of a retraction of the pannus. So I did a small tenonoplasty over there and resuturing of that area. Now, this is a 2 month post-op where patient is doing pretty well. There was regular follow-up with this patient till the 2 months of time, and there's a small thinning of here, but there's no fluorescent staining, but a little bit of pooling happens. So I have to watch this particular area closely in future. So this patient gained a pretty good vision, and this patient was done during the first and second wave of the lockdown. Now it is very difficult to follow up these cases during this period, and we all know that it's the keratoprosthesis do require a lot of follow up. So this patient every 10 days sends me a video of his eye from his mobile phone, and he also sends a photo, and we do discuss about his symptoms, whether his vision is decreased subjectively or not. So this is a way we are following up right now. So this overall, at least it gives me some idea that the patient is doing well and there are no big complications. Now with the literature review, what I found out is there are few cases which are published where, like in this case, this author has done the keratoprosthesis, Boston type 1 keratoprosthesis under buccal mucosa for in a case of OCP. So they did the surface MMG, and 3 months later they did the type 1 Boston keratoprosthesis with patient's own cornea under the MMG, although they did the opening of the optical center at the same time. Dr. Basu also reported two cases where, in one case, they did type 1 keratoprosthesis under surface MMG 2 months later, and in the other case, they did the modified type 1 keratoprosthesis, that is your LVP keratoprosthesis, which has a longer optical stem, so it can actually accommodate the mucous membrane graft pretty well. They did it under mucous membrane graft. Although I did not find any publication under PANUS, we do know that some of our colleagues are doing this, and in fact I took the inspiration from them and did this case. So to summarize, type 1 keratoprosthesis can be done for end stage blinding corneal disease, and it is one of the procedures besides alloSLED. But sometimes we need to do some innovations and modifications, like doing K-Pro under PANUS or MMG in scenarios where BCL cannot be put, or if the surface is very dry or keratinized. Thank you so much.